There is no more cost of living. There is only cost of surviving.
Bag of bricks, $17.
Here's something else that we need to bring down the cost of. Just everything.
All right, so we're near the end of 2024, and I thought I'd make this video to compare to what happens at the end of 2025, because what I've seen recently is that some people aren't really using the term cost of living anymore. It became the cost of surviving, which kind of paints a grim future of what we're about to see in 2025. Hopefully not, but I want you to see what some people are going through and what they're having to deal with. I also have some comments and experiences from you guys from previous videos, so if you want to be featured on a future video, leave it in the comments down below, where we're going to start off with the classic housing prices, especially compared to just a few years ago.
The difference in wealth between buying your home in 2021 versus buying a home today is absolutely insane. In 2021, the median home price in America was $346,000. 10% down payment would be $34,600. At a 3% interest rate, that mortgage payment for principal and interest only was $1,313 per month. You add up all those payments over 30 years, that person is paying $472,680 for their entire mortgage. Let's fast forward to today. Median home in America is $405,000. With a 10% down payment, that's $40,500. If interest rates were 3%, that'd be $1,537 per month. But they're not. 7%, that payment is $2,425. All of those payments added up, that person's going to pay $873,000 for the same exact home as someone in 2021 will pay $470,000. If that wealth difference isn't enough, take that $400,000 difference in interest, invest just 10% per month, $100 a month over the next 30 years, you'll have an additional $231,000 in wealth.
So that's how unbelievably important interest rates are, especially when you're talking about a home. And I mean, the advantage for anybody who was able to buy a house during COVID is just so much greater than everybody else right now. They have such a leg up. I mean, even compared to other generations.
Have you all realized how the boomers have been a little more quiet when it comes to picking on the millennials and Gen Zers, especially the past few months? And I think the reason is that they are now feeling what we were complaining about 3 years ago. And the reason that we knew that inflation was going to really fuck us is because we were the ones renting, seeing these high increases, or we were trying to buy a house and seeing how far out of reach it really was. So we saw it coming. But the boomers, I think, originally weren't affected. But now here we are 3 years later, I think their property taxes went up, their homeowners insurance went up, maintenance and services around the house went up, and of course, groceries, insurance, car prices, everything has gotten so expensive. And I think the boomers are now hurting because they are on a fixed income. And what this basically boils down to, even if the richest generation who had the greatest 3 decades to build wealth in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s are now struggling in their retirement from following to go to school, get good grades, go to college, get a good job, work for 40 fucking years, and then retire, and they're not even comfortable. That is proof that we're not the crazy ones. We're just seeing through it and going, this maybe used to work for a lot more people, but it just doesn't now.
So what does that mean for our generations when we start to get up to their ages? At least just my personal opinion, the fixed income kind of freaks me out, even if I am old and retired and getting my social security checks and living out my day, because honestly, examples exactly like this. But honestly, that's the goal for most people in a normal 9-to-5 job. But if the people a couple generations over us that got a better deal overall are now starting to see how much this is hurting everybody, that really doesn't bode well for us. We could see some of the comments here. It's crazy how you have to personally go through it to finally believe it. My boomer dad still thinks $20 for a meal is expensive. I'm like, that's normal now. It is expensive, but it is the norm. Nothing brings me joy like seeing a $300,000 house sit on the market for over a year because a boomer couple is trying to sell it for $800,000 now, especially around where I live in North Carolina. That is the complete norm. Just seeing that graph spike up on Zillow over the past couple years is just unbelievable. Another comment that has a really good point, because they're trying to retire now, finding out that yes, they could sell their house for a lot of money, but can't downgrade their house for what they thought. Because say they did have a big giant family house because they had several kids and obviously they all grew up and moved out. So eventually when they retire, they're going to downgrade to like, probably the easiest example is like the Florida ranch houses where it is pretty small, but there's only 2 people living there. However, if you start looking up the price of those tiny little houses, it is real rough. A lot of these comments are about the housing prices They're so unwilling to sell their houses without major profits. My uncle can't get his house sold because he thinks he could get 30% more than what it's basically valued at. And especially with 7% interest rates right now, you saw how much you'd actually spend over a 30-year period if you were going to purchase a house right now. I know, of course, you can refinance, but that time in between of hopefully seeing a lower interest rate is still going to hurt your wallets. And because of that, there have been many more consequences.
Hey, U.S. government here. So here's the situation. So our population is dipping below the replacement level, and as the U.S. government, we can't have that. So your responsibility now is to have children for us. Okay, yeah, no, not a problem. So I just have a couple questions. For one, are you going to help with the housing market crisis that's going on right now? Because a lot of my generation cannot afford a $400,000 house. No. Okay, how about putting a cap on rent? Because $1,500 for rent is severely out of budget. No. Okay, what about helping with medical bills? Because, going to all those prenatal appointments and then actually giving birth and then the baby's appointments, like, medical bills are just so expensive and so hard to keep up with. So can you guys help out with that? No. Oh. Since you guys aren't willing to lower the cost of the things I've listed, are you able to help raise my wages so I can afford these items? No.
So the US is below replacement fertility and has actually been like that since 2007. So, we could talk about the last hit with the economy, the '08 financial crisis, and it hasn't gotten better. It's just gotten worse, actually, in the past few years. Even going with some of the numbers she was talking about in the clips, $1,500 for rent is actually kind of cheap now, especially if we're talking about any sort of new construction. You have the modern finishes, and apparently they're just luxury now. Here we have a comment from one of you guys. My mom raised 3 of us kids by herself in '01 and could afford a small apartment working as a waitress in a cafe. That would not be possible anymore. I would say if both parents were working as waiters or waitresses, you probably wouldn't be able to survive either. And then because of that, we have way more evictions.
The economy is so bad that evictions have skyrocketed far above pre-lockdown levels. This is of course due to rents surging through the roof. In fact, in some cities, evictions are up as much as 35%. And this data is from Princeton University. Now get this equation, as rents went up by 30%, evictions went up by 30%. What a coincidence. It's not hard to see why this has happened. Many people were already pushed to the brink thanks to the surge in the cost of living. And once rents skyrocketed even more and more people were pushed over the edge. Also keep in mind that due to the constrained supply of affordable housing, in many markets, people are forced to rent more expensive apartments than they can actually comfortably afford. This does 2 things. First, it absolutely decimates their budgets. But second, it exposes them to any kind of price increase, which they may not be able to absorb. People being forced to rent apartment units that are outside of their budget is also driving this trend. The surge in evictions is just one more sign that we are in recession.
I've definitely seen this way more when we're talking about apartments and apartment buildings because, of course, it's owned by some sort of conglomerate that also has, 20 other apartment buildings, right? They're a huge corporation that every single year the rent will go up by a certain percentage. It's not a case-by-case basis with any of the tenants. All of the rent just goes up consistently, especially if you're in a place that's heavily populated like a city. And because of that, we're seeing evictions. Now, I've already said this before. This isn't like concrete. It's just my personal experience of what I've seen because I rent a townhouse right now, but I'm renting it from just a guy. It's not like a real estate company that owns all the townhouses in, the entire town. It's just one single guy that paid off this townhouse and then lives in another area. So that could be a contributing factor that even though where I live in North Carolina is very popular right now, my rent has not increased since I moved here, especially when he could have upped it for $100 or $200. So if you are looking on places like Zillow or Realtor to look for a rental property, you can see the profile of who's renting it out. So again, it's just my experience. I didn't rent from a giant corporation, and maybe you get some better experiences of not just getting, constant rent increases every single year. Here we have another comment from one of you guys, former Long Islander here. Childhood home, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, maybe 1,800 square feet, built in the 50s. In '74, sold for $39,400. An 8 1986 sold for $165,000, which was when his parents bought it, and in 2022 sold for $622,000. I mean, the jump there is absolutely insane, especially for Long Island. I have been to Long Island a couple times. It kind of freaks me out, even though it's 100% a mental thing. Like, the only way you could escape that area is just driving west. I don't know, I just have a very weird thought process there, and I'm definitely not buying a house there for $600,000.
I see the people on this app that are like, if you want to be successful, you need at least 5 sources of income. Bro, I just want to live. I just want to live. I don't even know if I want to do that. No, I'm joking. But it's crazy that a house used to be able to live off of one income. Used to be able to feed the kids, pay the bills, and even go on vacation sometimes off of one income. And now that's a pipe dream. Now it takes 2 parents working 40 hours a week each. And that's just to pay off this month's bills. That's not even next month's bills. Also, keep in mind, it takes most people 30 years to pay off a house. A thing we need to live. 30 years. Please don't explain to me how the system works. I understand. But I'm asking, is this how we really want to do this? There are certainly other ways to do this. Ones that haven't even been invented yet. That we haven't even thought of. But we're just sticking with this, I guess. I don't think humans are this dumb. I think we're starting to realize that maybe this isn't the way we should be doing things. And I think we're going to figure something out soon, and a big change is going to happen.
I don't want to be the person who's super negative and jaded all the time, but I don't really know the solution that could happen soon. But I did want to put this clip in for the very first sentence he had, especially when you're on social media scrolling. People are taking huge advantages. You know, most millionaires have, 100 sources of different income. And because of that, now you need to have one too. You know, the normal 9-to-5er. You need to have your job, a side hustle, affiliate marketing, digital products. You need to be investing in the stock market and crypto and blah, 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 blah. I get, of course, it is a smart thing to do instead of relying on one single income, but some people just don't really want to do that. They want to clock in and clock out a normal 9-to-5 like we saw a couple generations ago and have a house with the white picket fence and a dog and a family and a car. But that's become so far out of reach for some that people are desperate and will end up actually investing into some of these, gurus and all of the type of people that we've talked about in previous, bad TikTok advice, and unfortunately pay for courses that maybe don't really help too much and end up getting scammed by some people because they're vulnerable. So, I mean, honestly, the future doesn't really look too great right now. But we do have another comment from one of you guys. Never mind 20 years ago, where I live in Northern Ontario, a brick of butter was $2.99 in 2019. Now it's $9. I wait for sales if I could get it to $5, and I'll buy 10 and freeze them. So we've seen previously on this video, it's not just the US, Canada, Australia, a lot of parts of the UK as well, just having a really rough time.
The cost of living in Canada is sick. There is no more cost of living. There is only cost of surviving. My girlfriend and I met for coffees the other day, and she owes a little bit of money to the government, and she was crying to me, saying, I don't know what to do. I'm working 3 jobs. I'm a single mother. Like, I can't afford to live here anymore. So she had a call with the CRA, and the CRA ripped her apart. They said, it is unacceptable that you have not maxed out your credit cards to pay us. It is not acceptable that you are paying $1,000 a month in groceries for yourself and your 3 children. You need to cut back. So she said to them, you're telling me that you want me to take the food from my children's mouth to pay your greedy ass, when it's your fault that fucking groceries are astronomically priced right now. We are all in this together. We are all suffering together. The cost of living is killing people.
So real quick, the CRA is Canada's version of the IRS. So you could see how brutal and relentless they are, just like the US. We've recently talked about people trying to dodge taxes, and you honestly just can't. Maybe it'll take a long time. Maybe you think you got away with it, but the IRS will eventually come after you. And it's the same thing with Canada. They'll do absolutely anything and hound you nonstop to be able to get their money. I mean, maxing out on credit cards and cutting back on food, it's absolutely unbelievable. And especially in Canada, it's really rough. We could see by some of these comments. My mom is at the top position of a registered nurse with 30 years, and she's struggling to pay the bills. Canada's almost done. We're selling our place and leaving Canada. I've seen that a lot. Can't even pay my bills. I'm considering moving out of Ontario. Not just Canada, everywhere. Australia is struggling as well. Cost of living in Ontario is the highest than any province in Canada. Even with all our problems in the US, I wouldn't doubt we'd start seeing more Canadians moving down here with us. I would say though, they're probably not moving to Hawaii because after you see some of the prices in this video, oh man, I don't know who would be moving there if you're not already super rich.
If you're thinking about moving to Hawaii, great place, beautiful place, but just be warned, the cost of living is so high. Okay, let me show you how much my groceries cost. Gallon of milk, $9. A dozen eggs, $7. That actually might be normal. Some of these actually might be normal. I've just kind of forgotten how much things cost. 5 apples. I did eat 2 because I was very hungry on the walk home. $15. $15. $3 an apple. Bag of carrots, $8. Loaf of bread, $6.50. This isn't even fancy bread. This is normal bread. Bag of grapes, $17. 4 pairs. Oh, they're bruised. Oh. 4 bruised pairs, $8. It's a good pair. I'll give it that. But you know what? Like, that's the price you pay to live by the beach, to live by the mountains. You go hiking for free, you go to the beach for free. So to me, it's worth it. It does mean I eat porridge for dinner most nights because I don't get paid a lot. I'm young. This is the time to be poor. Definitely worth it. Just be warned.
I don't know. Of course, Hawaii does look amazing. You know, I'd love to go on vacation there one day. But I mean, you can make up your decision and move there if you like. But we got another comment from one of you guys. It's not just the cost of food, but also huge shrinkflation. Every product is shrunk by at least 30%. And I've made a couple dedicated videos of just example after example. It didn't matter what company and in what store, everything was going down. Target, Walmart, Costco, you name it. With any of the slimy tactics where they make maybe the can bigger, but the indent on the bottom actually goes up farther into the can. So the fluid ounces either stay the same and go down, even though it looks like you're getting more. Same thing with the paper towels. I mean, you could see the actual sheets getting lower. The different tactics companies use just go on and on. If you wanted to watch that video, you could find way more examples on there. But I mean, this has turned into people cutting back so much, especially if you're in a state that's even worse than the rest of the country that's not doing great.
Comment was in response to living in California. I've lived here my whole life, and fun fact, I'm 7th generation Californian, so my family has lived here for like over 100 years. And we don't come from like a lot of money or anything. Living here, I feel like I've always been on like the lower end financially of my friend group. But I feel like depending on where you live, the cost of living in California is actually low because most of the stuff we do every day is free. When I was little, I would ask my parents like, why don't we go on as many trips as my friends? Why don't we get as many extravagant gifts as my friends? And they were like, we choose to live in California. We always have. And there comes like sacrifices with that. Like we don't travel as much. We always just went camping or on like little surf trips. And they were like, our daily life is so rich and so full of wonderful things that California has. Surfing, hiking, mountain biking, all of that stuff. So they were like, that cost of living is more important to us than like traveling or having like a lot of nice things. And that's how me and my husband live here too. It's definitely a sacrifice, but has been so worth it for us.
So I mean, honestly, I don't really doubt it. I've never been to California, but I bet if I go and then I realize how amazing the weather is 24/7, it would make it pretty difficult not to live there. But then I'll probably see all the taxes they have to pay and the housing prices, and then I'll fly my way all the way back to North Carolina. But I mean, if you do want to live there and you're a normal person and you're not some, influencer or actor, some sort of rich and famous person that lives and spends $5,000 a month on rent in LA, you are going to have to cut back pretty severely. And that means no crazy vacations or houses and just kind of living your life to the fullest in your own way. But what I've started to see a lot with these types of videos with the high cost of living in the US and Australia and Canada is a lot of the videos from Europe showing how cheap everything is and how much better it is. And I mean, you've probably seen something like this as well.
Living in Italy is actually the cheapest thing ever. When people vacation here, they spend a lot of money because they're doing experiences and going to restaurants that, they obviously want to enjoy since it's their vacation time. But if you're living here day to day and renting long term, my rent is 350 euros a month, which is $400 a month pretty much. I probably spend like $50 on groceries a week max. If you go out to dinner to like a pizzeria, you might spend 10 euros a person. Health insurance is free, which is another huge bonus. I don't drive a car here, so I take the train everywhere, so I don't have car payments or gas to pay for. I buy a monthly train pass for 60 euros and I have unlimited trains the whole month.
So I remember a long time ago, I had a clip in a video from I'm pretty sure she was American living in Spain, and she said she was living in like the center of Madrid, you know, the big city, and how cheap everything was and how much better than the US it was. And then I looked at the comments from everybody who actually lives in Spain saying that this was wildly incorrect. It's just straight up lies with how expensive it actually is to live in Spain. And then you start seeing the comments here. Salary sucks and socialized medicine isn't the dream. What part of Italy are you in? What part are you from? Because apartments in Rome, Milan, or Florence are way more expensive. Health insurance isn't free. You're paying through your paycheck and taxes. What about work? Where do you work? It's cheap if you have a non-Italian salary. For the average Italian, it's pretty expensive. I'm mostly uncomfortable with the types of homes, but in Italy, no AC, very little appliances is a huge adjustment. Where do you work, or are you retired? There's many people asking where she's working and how much money she's going to be making because of it. This is so tone deaf, it's not cheap for the average Italian salaries. So even in places like this in Europe, where apparently it's cheaper, it's the same story as like the people who end up living in Thailand or Vietnam, a lot of the Asian countries, where if you have some sort of income, you know, remote job or passive investments where you're getting paid in USD, then it could actually be very easy to live there. But if you go to Italy and you don't have a remote job and you actually have to get a job there, it seems like it wouldn't be nearly as fun. It's not actually the dream like these videos are trying to show you. We're gonna finish off this video with kind of a funny clip from New Jersey. I remember going here one day for work and it was absolutely unreal.
Dang, these houses are gorgeous. What in the hell do these people do for a living? I mean, really? What in the hell do you do for a living? Where you work? You work several part-time jobs? You work overtime? Are they hiring?
So I ended up going to this town once. It was Saddle River, New Jersey, and I was just delivering medicine. That was one of my old jobs, but unbelievably wealthy areas. You could see some of the comments though. In NJ, $30,000 to $40,000 in property taxes. That I can't even imagine how expensive that area is. Of course, the monthly payments on those houses, but just again, those property taxes would be brutal. And then we have a comment from one of you guys. I live in Somerset County, New Jersey, which is right next to where I used to live. Half the time in these videos, I'm wearing a Somerset Patriots hat. The housing prices are crazy. Our house has nearly appreciated $50,000 since we bought it last year. Makes no sense anymore, and people see it as more of an investment rather than a place to live. Property taxes also make NJ unaffordable. So I mean, there was no way I was going to end up buying a home up in New Jersey. I don't even think I could afford it right now. But I mean, we are at the end of 2024. Hopefully I can make a video a year from now and show that it has gotten a little bit better, maybe, hopefully. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. That's all I got for you guys today. YouTube thinks you'll like this video popping up on screen right now, but hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, and I'll talk to you guys later.